A machine that once promised greatness eventually turned into a nightmare. When Cadillac introduced the Northstar V8 in 1993, it was hailed as America's bold reply to the refined engines coming out of Europe from the likes of BMW and Mercedes-Benz. With dual overhead cams, 32 valves, and a lightweight all-aluminum block, it was the most advanced engine General Motors had ever built. For 3 straight years, 1995 through 1997, Ward's Auto World ranked it among the top 10 engines in North America. Critics celebrated its smooth power delivery, its modern design, and the sense that Cadillac finally had a heart capable of standing alongside Europe's most prestigious luxury cars. But the excitement didn't last. By the early 2000s, the Northstar's reputation had soured dramatically. What began as Cadillac's engineering triumph had devolved into one of the industry's biggest cautionary tales. Mechanics dreaded working on them, owners feared inevitable head gasket failures, and resale values dropped the moment those problems became known. How could an engine once praised as a technological masterpiece fall so far? The story highlights just how thin the line is between innovation and disaster. The roots of the Northstar stretch back to 1984 when Oldsmobile's R&D division began shaping what would become one of GM's most ambitious projects. At the time, Cadillac was in trouble. Its aluminum HT4100 V8 had been a total failure, while European brands were rolling out advanced dual overhead cam engines that made American designs look outdated. Meanwhile, Lexus had redefined smoothness with whisper-quiet V8s, BMW was dominating with its silky inline sixes, and Mercedes had perfected the balance of refinement and performance. Cadillac needed more than just a new engine. It needed a revolution. Enter Chief Engineer Willem Vertman and his team, who set audacious goals. They wanted 300 horsepower from a 4.6-liter platform, refinement so polished that the motor would be nearly silent at idle, and build quality that could rival German precision. The Northstar wasn't meant to be just another V8. It was intended as Cadillac's flagship of modern technology. Nearly a decade of resources and research went into the project, with every part designed from scratch: the split-block aluminum crankcase, chain-driven dual overhead cams, 4 valves per cylinder, variable valve timing, and sequential fuel injection. GM left behind its old tricks and bet everything on this engine. By 1992, the Northstar was production-ready. The first versions made 295 horsepower, a respectable figure for the time, but numbers alone didn't tell the story. What really set it apart was refinement. It was so quiet that Cadillac had to install a safeguard to keep drivers from accidentally trying to restart a running engine. When the Northstar finally debuted in the 1993 Cadillac Elante, the automotive world took notice. Reviewers couldn't believe an American luxury brand had built something that could genuinely compete with Europe's best. Road tests praised its responsiveness, its near-silent operation, and its polished character. Awards poured in from Auto Week, Motor Week, Popular Science, Business Week, Automobile Magazine, and even Rolling Stone. For Cadillac, it was a golden moment. Underneath the praise, the engine really was a technical marvel. Its split-block crankcase eliminated traditional bearing caps, improving strength and precision. Cast-in iron cylinder liners added durability without sacrificing aluminum's weight advantage. The dual overhead cams, run by chains rather than belts, drove 4 valves per cylinder through direct-acting hydraulic lifters. Variable valve timing adjusted seamlessly across the rev range, while sequential fuel injection delivered pinpoint accuracy. Even the intake manifold was innovative, made of thermoplastic to cut heat transfer and boost performance. By 1995, Cadillac offered 2 versions, the L37 high output at 300 horsepower and the LD8 tuned to 275 horsepower with stronger low-end torque. Together, they set a new benchmark for American luxury performance. At last, Cadillac had an engine that not only met global standards, but in some ways surpassed them.
The Northstar was more than a step forward. It was a leap. Its construction used advanced casting techniques in metallurgy, shedding about 100 pounds compared to iron blocks. The 2-piece crankcase allowed for more precise tolerances, while the cast-in liners solved expansion problems that had haunted earlier aluminum engines. The heads were tightly packaged marvels, with 2 chain-driven cams per bank running generous valve sizes, 33mm intake and 29mm exhaust, shaped to optimize burn efficiency and reduce emissions. Continuous variable valve timing allowed the engine to balance fuel economy, emissions, and power all at once. It was even designed as an interference engine, showing just how confident GM was in its manufacturing precision. But, as history would soon prove, technical brilliance doesn't always guarantee long-term reliability. By the late 1990s, troubling patterns began to emerge from Cadillac's service bays across the country. Owners of Northstar-powered cars were reporting mysterious coolant loss, clouds of white smoke trailing from the exhaust, and rapid overheating. At first, the symptoms looked like typical head gasket failures, but the truth was far worse. The real culprit wasn't the gaskets at all, but the very bolts holding the aluminum heads onto the aluminum block. These torque-to-yield fasteners were engineered to stretch slightly during installation, locking in a strong clamping force. Yet when combined with aluminum's tendency to expand and contract under heat, and the fine thread design of the block, the setup became a ticking time bomb. Over thousands of heat cycles, galvanic corrosion began eating away at the block's threads. Once the threads weakened, the already overstressed bolts could no longer hold their grip. Eventually, they would rip straight out of the aluminum, allowing the cylinder heads to lift just enough for coolant to leak into the combustion chambers. At that point, the engine's fate was sealed. Repair bills routinely topped $4,000 to $6,000, often more than the entire car was worth on the used market. Many mechanics flat out refused to take on the job, knowing it would tie up their shops for days. Word spread quickly, and resale values collapsed. The Northstar, once Cadillac's technological crown jewel, was now poisoning the brand's image. General Motors knew the issue was bigger than just individual failures. This was a crisis threatening Cadillac's reputation at large. Billions of dollars have been poured into developing a flagship engine, only for it to become infamous for catastrophic breakdowns. Engineers tried to fix the problem in stages. In 2000, they switched to longer head bolts, hoping deeper thread engagement would help. But it didn't solve the core issue. The aluminum itself was failing. By 2002, GM altered the thread pitch and made the bolt holes deeper, but the stigma had already taken root. The true solution finally arrived in 2004, when the troublesome bolts were replaced with stronger LS6-derived fasteners using coarser threads and upgraded materials. Engines built from 2005 to 2011 were dramatically more reliable, but for many customers, the damage was already done. While Cadillac engineers were scrambling, another force was reshaping GM's strategy: the LS small block V8. Simple, compact, and brutally effective, the LS proved that pushrod engines could outperform overhead cam rivals without the complexity. The LS1 and the Corvette already outgunned the Northstar, and the LS6 delivered supercar-level performance while retaining the legendary durability of Chevrolet's small block heritage. Cadillac's planners began to question whether the costly dual overhead cam experiment was worth continuing. The LS family was cheaper to produce, easier to service, and more powerful. The writing was on the wall. By July 2011, after an 18-year run, the Northstar program was officially shut down. The last examples powered the Cadillac DTS, the Buick Lucerne, and the Cadillac STS. Cars that now serve as artifacts from an era when GM mistook complexity for progress. More than a decade later, the Northstar's legacy remains hotly debated. Among enthusiasts, the name often sparks tales of blown gaskets, ruined blocks, and repair bills that could bankrupt an owner. Yet the story isn't entirely one-sided. With proper maintenance, and especially in post-2005 versions, the Northstar proved itself capable of decent reliability. But by then, trust was gone. In the used car market, Cadillacs with Northstar still trade at heavy discounts compared to their pushrod-powered cousins, with many buyers refusing to even consider them regardless of condition. For those who know what they're getting into, opportunities remain. Specialized companies like Northstar Performance offer permanent repair kits using steel thread inserts and upgraded hardware, which eliminate the original failure mode. Enthusiasts who commit to these repairs often end up with a smooth, powerful luxury V8 at a fraction of the cost. Still, the process is expensive and time-consuming, making it a viable path only for die-hard fans. In the end, the Northstar stands as one of the most important lessons in modern automotive history. Cutting-edge specs and groundbreaking designs mean little without durability, serviceability, and trust. Cadillac built an engine that was refined, powerful, and innovative, but it lacked the single quality luxury buyers value most: dependability. That shortcoming turned a masterpiece into a cautionary tale.